Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is really wonderful to have you with us again.
It's good to be here.
Today, we are. We're not just scratching the surface of a topic. I feel like we're stepping into what might be the most silent, but maybe the most significant battlefield in human history.
That's a strong way to put it, but I don't think it's an exaggeration. Not at all.
We're unpacking episode 24 of the Building Humans series. And I have to say, this one hits different.
It does. And you're right to call it a battlefield. Sounds dramatic, I know. People might hear that and think, we're talking about geopolitics or military history.
Right, something external.
Exactly. But when you really engage with this material, when you sit with the philosophy presented in this episode, you realize we aren't just talking about parenting advice.
No.
We aren't talking about tips for getting your toddler to eat their vegetables or, how to choose the right preschool. We are talking about a global revolution in how we view the human being.
A global revolution. That's the scale. And the title of this deep dive is The Social Question, The Forgotten Citizen. And, right off the bat, that title just grabs you.
It's heavy.
It feels weighty. We usually talk about social questions in the context of, economics or politics or these massive civil rights movements. We talk about the labor question or the woman's question in history books. But this puts the child right in the center of that same political arena.
It does. And that placement is completely intentional. It's a deliberate act. It demands that we stop looking at the child merely as a domestic responsibility.
Private family matter.
Yes. And start seeing them as a social entity. And to set the stage properly, we have to acknowledge the incredible collaboration that brings this perspective to light.
Of course.
This deep dive is powered by the Al-Mahaba Foundation, which stands for Love for All and Service to All, and Dar el-Kalima Publishing House.
Two organizations that, it really seems like they're dedicated to the deeper architecture of humanity, not just the surface level stuff.
Absolutely. They're providing the source material that allows us to look at the child through this Maria Montessori lens. And honestly, it's a lens that might make you uncomfortable at first.
I think uncomfortable is the right word.
It strips away all the sentimentality we usually attach to childhood.
All the fluffy Hallmark card stuff.
Exactly. And it replaces it with a fierce, almost startling respect for the human spirit.
It's uncomfortable because it challenges the status quo in your own living room. It challenges the way you speak, the way you schedule your days, even the way we, think about love.
That's it.
So let's start with the hook. The hook that the source material presents, it points out something so incredibly obvious that I think most of us just miss it completely. We live in a world that is fundamentally built on laws,
Yeah,
right?
we do. Our entire civilization is built on these legal frameworks. It's the only way we can coexist.
Okay, so we have labor laws to protect workers from exploitation, minimum wage, safety standards, all of that.
Things that were fought for tooth and nail for over a century.
Right. We have environmental regulations to protect the planet from pollution. We have, thankfully, established rights for women after centuries of struggle. We have broadly agreed as a society that you cannot simply do whatever you want to another person just because you have more power than them.
Correct. Society has evolved, painfully, slowly, but it has evolved to create legal and social protections for vulnerable groups or vital resources. We have recognized that power cannot go unchecked.
It just can't.
If you have a factory, you can't lock the workers inside. If you have a business, you can't discriminate based on race. These are the big social questions we have answered, or at least are, trying to answer.
But then the source asks this, this haunting, almost ghostly question. Where is the law for the child's soul?
And that's it. That is the core of the social question regarding the child. It shines a spotlight on a massive blind spot in our collective vision.
A blind spot.
A huge one. Now, a listener might hear that and immediately say, wait, hold on. We have laws against child abuse. We have laws that say you have to send kids to school. We have child labor laws.
Right, that was my first thought. Of course we have laws about kids. It seems obvious.
And that's true, we do. But we have laws protecting the child's body. You cannot physically harm a child without consequences. That's called assault. You must feed them, otherwise it's neglect.
We protect the vessel.
We protect the physical vessel. But the legal and social framework completely, utterly ignores the spiritual and psychological development of the human being inside that vessel. The source material argues that the child is the most ignored citizen in our society when it comes to their personhood, their will, their spirit, and their contribution to humanity.
Okay, so ignored in what sense? Because I feel like modern parents, and I'll include myself in this, we are obsessed with our kids. We hover, we schedule, we buy them everything. The child industry is a billion-dollar market.
It's enormous.
We have apps to track their sleep, their grades, their location. So how can they possibly be the forgotten citizen if we never stop looking at them?
That is the paradox, isn't it? That is the absolute heart of the matter. They are not forgotten as objects of affection. We love them furiously. And they certainly aren't forgotten as consumers. We'll definitely get to that later.
Oh, sure.
But they're forgotten as distinct social entities with their own rights. The source delivers a very, very provocative truth here. We treat children as property, not as human beings.
Oof. Property. That is a heavy word.
It is.
It brings up images of history that we like to think we've moved way past. It sounds archaic. It sounds accusatory.
It's heavy, and it's intentional. The source wants to shake us awake. But think about the dynamic in the average home. Because adults provide the food, the shelter, the clothes, there is this deep subconscious assumption that we own the child.
A kind of transactional mindset.
Completely transactional. I made you, I feed you, I pay for this house, therefore I control you.
It's the my house, my rules mentality.
Yeah.
But taken to an existential level, it's not just about cleaning your room. It's about your soul.
Precisely. It assumes that the provider holds the moral authority. Because the child is dependent on us for their physical survival, we assume they must be dependent on us for their identity, their schedule, their thoughts, and their purpose.
So the goal of this deep dive, and really this whole movement being pushed by the Al-Mahaba Foundation and Dar el-Khalima, is to shift that entire paradigm.
That is the mission. The whole goal is to move from owning children to respecting them. It's about recognizing that providing for a child's physical needs does not give us the right to dictate their spiritual destiny or to crush their psychological will. We are guardians. We are not owners.
Guardians, not owners. That's a powerful distinction.
A critical one.
Okay, so let's really unpack this idea of the forgotten citizen. This is the label Maria Montessori gives the child in the source material. It sounds, as we said, almost like a political class, like the proletariat or the bourgeoisie.
That is exactly how the source wants you to see it. It's framing childhood not just as a biological phase, something you just get through to become an adult, but as a distinct social class. And historically, this class has been oppressed by the adult world for centuries.
It's fascinating to think of it that way. I mean, we usually think of class struggles as rich versus poor or labor versus capital, but you're saying there is a class struggle between the adult and the child.
Yes. And it's maybe the oldest one. If you look at the source material, it draws a direct parallel to other rights movements to help us understand the gravity of the situation. Think about the workers' rights movement in the 19th and 20th centuries.
Okay, right. The Industrial Revolution era, dark satanic mills and all that.
Right. There was a time when a factory owner truly felt they owned the worker because they paid the wage. The logic was, I provide the money that keeps you from starving. Therefore, I decide the conditions, the hours, the safety, and even how you behave.
The worker had no say. They were just a cog in the machine, a piece of equipment.
And they were seen purely as a tool for the owner's profit. If the worker complained, they were ungrateful.
Right. I gave you a job. Why are you complaining about the deadly fumes of the 16-hour days?
Exactly. And it took a revolution in thinking and a lot of violent conflict to realize that labor has rights independent of the employer. Just because I pay you doesn't mean I own your soul or your safety. You are still a citizen with inalienable rights.
And we saw similar things with women's rights. The idea that being a provider, historically the husband granted ownership or total authority, that was the norm until very, very recently.
Precisely. The argument was always, he puts food on the table, so she should obey. We have, as a society, worked so hard to dismantle those ownership myths in almost every other area of society.
We've made progress.
We have. We recognize that employees are human beings, not tools. We recognize women are independent citizens, not appendages of their husbands. But when it comes to the child's soul, the source argues we are still living in a feudal system.
A feudal system.
We are technically benevolent dictators, but we are dictators nonetheless.
That is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of loving parents, I'm sure. I know it is for me. We like to think of ourselves as guides or mentors or coaches.
Of course we do. No one wants to be the villain.
But the source insists this isn't just about being nice to kids. It's about a fundamental, structural restructuring of rights.
Right. This isn't about being a friend to your child. It's about recognizing that the child has a mission in life that is separate from your own. It is their own.
And when we treat them as property,
We assume their mission is to please us or to be a mini version of us, or to fulfill our unfulfilled dreams. I wanted to be a pianist, so you will be a pianist.
Or something even more mundane. I want a quiet house right now, so you must be quiet.
Hmm.
My desire for peace trumps your need to, I don't know, express joy loudly.
Exactly. That's a perfect everyday example. Recognizing them as a citizen means acknowledging they are here to do their own work, which we might not even understand yet. They have a contribution to make to humanity that is totally distinct from ours.
This concept of work and contribution is really central here, isn't it?
It's everything.
And it leads us perfectly into the second section of our deep dive. The source material talks about reframing the child from a consumer to a producer.
This is one of the most brilliant and powerful inversions in Montessori philosophy. It just flips the standard economic model of the family completely on its head.
Because, let's be honest, the common view, even if we don't say it out loud, even if we feel guilty for thinking it, is that kids are consumers.
Oh, absolutely.
They consume time. They
Exactly.
consume sleep. Oh my God, so much sleep, especially in those early years. And they consume money, diapers, food, clothes, school, activities. They are burdens on the resources of the family and the state.
It's the default setting. Economists literally calculate the cost of raising a child. You see those articles all the time. It now costs $300,000 to raise a child to age 18. The language is all about expenditure. They are a liability on the family balance sheet.
That's the cold, hard economic view of the child. It's transactional.
And the source says it is completely and fundamentally wrong. The expert voice in the source material corrects this sharply. The child is not a consumer. The child is a producer.
Okay, so let's unpack that.
Right.
Because that sounds counterintuitive. What do they produce? They don't make widgets. They don't write code. Well, not usually. They don't farm. They don't bring a paycheck home.
They produce the single most valuable, most complex, most important thing on the planet.
Which is?
They produce the adult.
They produce the adult. I want to let that hang there for a second because it sounds so simple, but when you really think about it, it changes everything.
It's a profound shift in perspective. Think about it for a moment. Every scientist who cures a disease, every leader who negotiates a peace treaty, every artist who moves the human soul, they didn't just appear out of a vacuum at age 25.
They weren't just being down fully formed.
No, they were built. And who built them? The child they once were. The child is the architect of the future human. The child is the laborer. The child does all the work of creating that adult.
So the child is the worker in the factory of humanity. They're taking the raw material of potential and painstakingly turning it into capability, into character, into a person.
Yes. And the source uses this fantastic analogy of the construction site to help us visualize this process.
I loved this visual in the script. It really resonated with me because, well, I live near a lot of construction right now, and it's loud and messy.
Then you know exactly what it's like. Imagine walking past a major construction site in your city. A new skyscraper, a new hospital. What do you see?
I see dust everywhere. I hear jackhammers at 7 in the morning. There are trucks blocking the road. There's mud caked on the sidewalk. It's ugly. It's an inconvenience.
You see raw materials, piles of bricks, stacks of steel beams, bags of cement scattered everywhere. It looks like total chaos. It looks like it's consuming space and resources.
It is. You have to walk around it. You get dust on your shoes. It makes your life slightly harder every day.
Exactly. But do you look at that construction site and say, what a waste of bricks? Do you get angry and say, this noise is just a burden, they should stop building immediately?
No, of course not. Because I know what they're doing. I say, oh, that's going to be the new library, or that's the new children's hospital wing. I see the future product.
Precisely. You respect the process, even the mess and the noise and the inconvenience, because you value the outcome. You know that the disruption is a necessary part of the creation. You understand intuitively that you cannot have the hospital without the jackhammers first.
But with children, oh, I see where this is going. With children, we look at the mess, the noise, and the consumption, and we just see the burden. We don't see the building rising.
We don't. When a toddler throws a tantrum because they can't buckle their own car seat, we see it as a disruption to our peace and our schedule.
We see it as defiance.
We see defiance. When a child spends 20 minutes just staring at a bug on the sidewalk instead of putting on their shoes, we see it as a waste of time. Come on, we're going to be late.
Guilty is charged.
But in that moment, the child is building. They are at work. With the tantrum, they are building emotional regulation or testing the limits of their will. With the bug, they're building focus or curiosity or scientific observation. They are literally constructing the neural pathways that will define their adult brain.
So the tantrum is actually the construction noise.
In many ways, yes, it's the sound of a personality being forged. It is the stress test of the emotional system. It's the child learning the boundaries of their will against the world. If we view it as a construction site, we might have a little more patience. If we view it as a broken, quiet time, we have anger and frustration.
We invest billions, trillions in physical infrastructure. We build bridges, skyscrapers, internet cables.
We do. We prioritize the physical shell of our civilization. It's tangible. You can see it. You can point to it.
But we forget to invest in the construction site of humanity itself.
And the source argues that if we ignore the child's social rights, if we constantly interrupt their sacred work because it's inconvenient for us, we are actively sabotaging our own future. We are cutting the funding to the most important project in all of civilization.
So when a child is, just playing or repeating a task over and over again, like when my daughter would pour water from one cup to another for like half an hour straight.
That is work. That is production. They are refining fine motor skills and hand-eye coordination. They are learning the fundamental principles of fluid dynamics. They are building the capacity for deep concentration.
And if we interrupt them because we're in a hurry, stop making a mess, we have to go now.
We are essentially walking onto a construction site and knocking over the scaffolding because it's in our way.
Wow. That puts a whole new spin on the morning rush to get out the door. Hurry up, put your shoes on.
It does. It reframes that daily frustrating interaction from an annoying delay to a disruption of vital work. Imagine if you were an architect deeply in the zone, finalizing the blueprints for a major project, and someone just came over, closed your laptop, and said, "Time to eat."
I would be furious. I would feel so disrespectful.
You'd feel like your work didn't matter to them at all.
Exactly. And that is how the child feels constantly, every day.
All day.
So why is this so hard for us? I mean, this all makes logical sense. But why do we naturally drift toward this ownership and burden mentality? Is it just that we're tired? Or is it something deeper? Because I consider myself a pretty patient person, but I still snap. I still interrupt the construction.
It's not just fatigue, though that definitely plays a part. The source material diagnoses this with a very specific, and I have to say, somewhat stinging term.
Oh, boy.
The adult superiority complex.
The adult superiority complex.
Oh,
okay.
That sounds clinical. It is the root cause of this entire dynamic. We, as a class of people called adults, have a superiority complex. We look at the child, who is physically smaller and intellectually less experienced in our specific world, and we assume we are superior in every single way.
We confuse bigger with better.
We confuse bigger with better. We confuse more experienced with more right.
We think we are the masters of the universe.
And we build the universe to prove it. The source describes this as the giant's world. I love this visualization because it forces you to empathize physically with the child. It takes you out of your comfortable adult body for a minute.
Let's go there. Paint the picture for us. What is the giant's world?
Okay, imagine if you, right now, as a full-grown adult, were suddenly dropped into a world where everyone else was 12 feet tall.
Okay, that's immediately terrifying.
Right. Everything is scaled up for them, not for you. The stairs are twice as high. You can't just walk up them. You have to crawl on your hands and knees just to get to the next floor. The tables are at your eye level or higher. You can't see what's on them unless you climb up on a chair. You can't reach the door handles to leave a room. You're trapped.
You would feel completely dependent, utterly helpless. You couldn't do anything for yourself.
The sinks are too high to wash your hands without help. The toilet is a monumental challenge. The light switches are out of reach. You live in perpetual darkness unless a giant decides to turn on the light for you.
Wow.
And it gets worse. These giants, who run everything, are constantly moving at a speed you can't possibly match. Their legs are longer, they walk fast, and they are constantly yelling down at you to hurry up.
Which is physically impossible.
They loom over you, their voices are booming, they pick you up without asking. Imagine a 12-foot giant just grabbing you around the waist and moving you from one spot to another because they decided it's time for you to sit.
That feels like an abduction. Not a hug,
They feed you what they want when they want. They talk over your head in a complex, booming language you can barely understand. They often laugh at your struggles to navigate their world.
That would be an absolute nightmare, a constant state of anxiety and frustration. You'd feel helpless. You'd probably act out. You'd scream. You'd try to bite them just to get them to put you down.
And that is the daily physical and psychological reality of a child. We have built giant-sized cities, giant-sized homes, and giant-sized schedules, and then we get angry and confused when the child is frustrated by it all.
The pacing thing
Mm-hmm.
that really stuck out to me in the notes for this. We force children to follow fast-paced schedules that align with adult productivity, not with child development.
Yes. The adult rhythm is efficient. It's linear. It's goal-oriented. Get in the car, go to school, come home, do homework, eat dinner, go to bed. It's about getting from point A to point B with the least amount of resistance. We measure the success of a day by our speed and efficiency.
Right. Did I get everything on my to-do list done today?
Exactly. But the child's natural rhythm is exploratory. It's slow, it's cyclical. They don't care about getting to point B. They care about the interesting rock they found on the path to point B. They care about the texture of the seatbelt, the way the light reflects off a puddle.
And when we force our pace on them,
We are oppressing them. We are in that moment saying, your way of existing in the world is wrong, my way is right.
and this connects to what the source calls the small adult fallacy.
Right, it's all part of the same complex. We tend to view children as small adults, just like us, but mini, defective versions of ourselves. So we think, if I can walk this fast, they should just learn to walk this fast. If I can sit still for an hour in a meeting, they should be able to sit still at the dinner table. If I can control my emotions when I'm frustrated, they should control theirs.
But they can't. Physically and neurologically, they are not capable of it.
Because they aren't small adults. They're a distinct phase of human life with different needs, different capabilities, and different laws of nature governing them.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like treating a caterpillar like a small butterfly and getting mad when it can't fly yet.
That is a perfect analogy. The caterpillar has a different job. Its job is to eat and grow and build the potential for flight. The butterfly's job is to fly and reproduce. If you get angry at the caterpillar for not flying, you don't get a faster butterfly, you get a dead or damaged caterpillar.
That is stark. So the source suggests we need to shift from seeing them as small adults to seeing them as builders of peace. That's a big leap. How does treating a child with respect regarding their size and their pace, how does that lead to world peace? That sounds a little grandiose.
It does on the surface, but it connects directly back to the social question. Think about the long-term psychological impact of living in that giant's world we just described. If you raise a human being in an environment of constant low-grade oppression, where their voice isn't heard, where their vital work is constantly interrupted, where their physical needs are secondary to the convenience of the giants, where they are handled like objects, you are teaching them a very specific and very dangerous lesson about power.
You're teaching them that might makes right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are teaching them that power is the only thing that matters. You are teaching them that the strong dictate the reality of the weak. You are building a human who believes in domination as the primary mode of interaction.
And when that child becomes an adult,
They will seek to dominate others to feel safe, to reclaim the power they never had. They will become the giant.
because that's the only model of success they've ever seen. That's what strong looks like to them.
Oh, but on the other hand, if you build a world that actually fits the child, if you get down on your knees to speak to them at eye level, if you give them a small table and a small chair, if you wait those extra 5 minutes for them to tie their own shoes, if you ask permission before you pick them up,
Then you are teaching respect. You're modeling it.
you are teaching that different needs can coexist peacefully. You are building a human who feels secure, heard, and validated in their very essence. That human grows up to become an adult who seeks peace, not power. They don't have that deep hole in their soul that needs to be filled by controlling other people.
And this brings us to the concept of service. I was really struck by how the source material frames this. It says, and this is a direct quote, "Servant to the child is the highest form of patriotism."
This redefines patriotism completely. It takes it away from flags and anthems and brings it right back into the home.
Because usually we think of patriotism as, defending the borders, waving the flag, paying your taxes, maybe serving in the military. It's outward facing. It's about protecting the state as it currently exists.
But the source argues that the ultimate defense of a nation, the only real long-term defense, is the quality of its people.
The quality of the citizens.
If you build broken people, you will have a broken nation. It's an inevitability. no matter how strong your army is, no matter how high your GDP is. If your citizens are psychologically damaged, anxious, aggressive, or suppressed, your society will reflect that. It will be unstable. It will be violent. It will collapse from within.
So parenting isn't just a domestic duty, it's a civic duty.
It is the ultimate civic duty. It's national defense at the most fundamental level. When you serve a child's development, when you get down on their level, when you advocate for their education, when you protect their spiritual space to do their work, you are actively preventing future wars and future crimes. You are building the peacekeepers of tomorrow.
That is such a powerful connection. Peace isn't just signed in treaties, it is built in the nursery.
It is the most long-term, most effective strategic investment a society can possibly make. And this is why the source presents a very stark binary choice for every parent and every educator. It's quite confrontational, actually. It says you cannot be neutral here. You are either a dictator or you are an advocate. Let's define those. Because nobody wants to be called a dictator. That sounds horrible. We associate that with tyrants in history books, not with loving parents.
It does sound horrible, but we slip into that role so easily, almost without noticing, in the privacy of our homes. The dictator is the one who ignores the child's voice and imposes their will based on that ownership mentality we discussed earlier.
It's the parent who says, do it because I said so.
Because I said so, or stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about, or the classic, my house, my rules.
It's governance by force. Might makes right.
It is, and it's often done with the intention of love. The parent thinks they are toughening the kid up or teaching them respect for authority, but what they're actually teaching is fear. They are crushing the child's will to replace it with blind obedience.
And the advocate, what does that look like?
The advocate is the one who fights for the child's rights, both within the home and in the wider world. They see the giant's world and they actively try to make it accessible. They put stools by the sink so the child can wash their own hands and feel capable. They empower them.
Yes. They buy clothes the child can put on themselves. They defend the child's time against the constant rush of the adult world. They see the adult superiority complex rising up in themselves, and they try to check it, to push it back down.
So the advocate is like the public defender for the forgotten citizen.
That's a great way to put it, yes. They plead the child's case to the world. Wait, he needs a moment. No, she's not being bad, she is learning. Can we slow down? This is too fast for him.
I love that image. Standing up for the little guy, quite literally. It reminds me of the motto the Al-Mahaba Foundation uses, which you mentioned at the start, love for all and service to everyone.
Yes. And applying that specific motto to parenting is revolutionary. We often love our children, we would die for them, but do we serve them? Or do we expect them to serve our ego, our schedule, our needs?
That's a hard question.
Service implies humility. It implies that the child's developmental potential is more important than our own convenience.
It completely changes the hierarchy. Instead of the child existing to serve the adult exists to serve the developing life of the child.
Which, ironically, is what creates the best, most capable, most respectful adult in the long run. It's the ultimate paradox of parenting. By giving up control, you gain a better human.
Before we wrap up, I want to spend a moment on something a little different. Section 5 of our source material is a bit of a meta-analysis. It asks, why is this script agile and provocative? It's almost analyzing its own teaching method.
This is interesting, isn't it? It pulls back the curtain on the rhetoric and the strategy being used in this deep dive. The source material is self-aware. It knows it is being confrontational.
It knows what it's doing.
It knows that calling parents dictators or comparing the adult-child dynamic to slavery, it knows that's risky. It risks alienating the very listener it's trying to reach.
It definitely is provocative. Phrases like, we treat children as property are designed to sting. They triggered me a little bit when I first read them. My first reaction was to feel defensive. No, I don't.
And that defensiveness is the target. They are designed to create a shock factor. The source explicitly mentions that this phrasing is meant to hit the core of traditional mentality.
It's not gentle.
No. If they just said, be nicer to your kids or try to be more patient, we would all nod sagely and say, sure, that's good advice, I'll try. And then we'd go back to our old habits 5 minutes later because it didn't land.
Because nice is subjective and vague, but property is structural.
Yeah.
Slave owner is a deep moral accusation.
Exactly. When they use a phrase like that, it forces a genuine reevaluation. It forces you to stop and look at your actions and ask, wait, in what ways am I denying this person their basic rights to personhood? It disrupts the autopilot. It breaks the trance of cultural habit.
It's a necessary wake-up call. And the construction site analogy does something similar, but from a different angle. It validates the child's worth in terms that adults, so especially in a capitalist society, can understand.
It moves the conversation from sentimentality, which can be easily dismissed, to utility and value. Even if you aren't a soft or sentimental person, you understand the value of a construction site. You understand the value of production.
It's speaking our language.
It uses the language of the adult world production, construction, citizenship, rights to defend the child's world. It argues on the adult's turf and wins.
And the terms forgotten citizen and adult superiority complex, these sound like academic almost.
Yeah.
Human rights terms.
And that is the point. It frames childhood as a human rights issue, not just a domestic, private issue. It takes what happens inside the four walls of the home and places it on the grand stage of global justice. It elevates the conflict. It says how you treat your child is a political act with global consequences.
So what does this all mean for the listener right now? If they're nodding along, if this is resonating and they're thinking, okay, I don't want to be a dictator, I want to be an advocate, where do they even start? It feels overwhelming to overhaul your entire parenting philosophy overnight.
It can be. It absolutely can.
Yeah.
But the source gives us a little breadcrumb, a tease for the next step. It mentions that the next episode, episode 25, is all about the guiding instincts, and it calls them the GPS that God put inside your child.
So the idea is once we start trying to steer the ship entirely ourselves, once we stop being the dictator, we need to learn how to read that internal GPS.
Exactly. The first step is to stop crushing the driver. That's what we've discussed today. Stop the oppression, grant a citizenship, recognize the producer. Once you grant the child their citizenship, then you have to learn to trust their internal direction. But for today, the real takeaway is the mindset shift.
The shift from property to person.
From property to person. Stop treating the child like a pet, something to be fed, groomed, and commanded, and start treating them like a citizen, someone with rights, a purpose, and a vital contribution to make.
To look at them and say, you are a builder and I am here to help you build.
That is the new role. Not a commander, but a humble assistant to the most important construction project on Earth.
That is the challenge. And if you want to join this revelation, and it really does feel like a revolution, the source encourages you to visit the Dar el Kalima publishing house at darelkalima.com.
Support the truth to build the human. That's the call to action. The resources there can help guide you from the big theory we discussed today into the small practical actions of tomorrow.
It has been a fascinating and, I'll admit, challenging journey through just one short script. But the implications are massive. It makes me want to go home and, I don't know, lower all the shelves in my house.
It changes everything about how we see the little people in our lives, doesn't it? It makes you realize that when you are looking down at a child, you are actually, in a profound sense, looking up at the future.
Thank you for guiding us through this. It's given me a lot to think about regarding the giant's world I'm helping to maintain every day.
It's a pleasure. It's a vital reminder that the smallest citizens have the biggest job of all.
And on that note, we will leave you with the motto that guides this entire series.
Love for all and service to everyone.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.